Alright, welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and start coding this page here. We've got some HTML markup to do and obviously some CSS styling to do. So what I like to do is I always start off by getting my HTML structured as much as possible without even styling anything. And in this case, we're going to be using the Skeleton boilerplate, so I'm going to use that as I start to code and go along. So let's just do a few housekeeping things here. What I've got is the index.html file open, and this is what ships with the Skeleton boilerplate. So right here, this is in the folder structure that we had set up in the last video. It's index.html. And it's great. It's already got everything set up for you, the basics that you're going to need. Obviously, this right here is within our body tag. This is just some dummy placeholder text, so we're going to go ahead and just get rid of that. And do a few basic housekeeping things. On the top there, we're going to go ahead and change out the title. So we'll just replace that with our new title. And one other thing we need to do here is this one ships with this railway font. We're going to go ahead and change that out to Merriweather. If you're not familiar with Google Fonts API, go check it out. It's a great resource for web fonts. You can use there's a whole bunch of options on there on Google Fonts to use in your projects, and in this case we're using a font called Merriweather, and what these numbers here represent are the font weights and the styles, so italic, and it looks like in this case I pulled down one, two, three, four different variants of this italic font that are all just different weights. Again, that's what these numbers correspond to, are the weights as well, so 400, 900. The bigger the number, the bolder the font is. Now we've got two different CSS files that are included in here as well, normalized.css and skeleton.css. So if you remember back to our folder structure in our CSS folder here, we've got normalize and skeleton. Normalize, again, is just the reset that we're going to be using, and skeleton is the skeleton boilerplate that we need. We're going to add one more to this here in a few minutes, which is called the custom.css file, and that's where we're going to store all of our custom styles that we're going to use for this project. On any boilerplate, framework, anything like that, you don't want to edit the skeleton.css files. You don't want to add to that file. You don't want to mess with it. You want to leave that intact as it's shipped. The reason being is when a new version comes out and you want to upgrade to the newest version, you can simply replace the skeleton.css file with the new skeleton.css file. And of course, if you make modifications to that file, you're going to have to go through and make all those modifications to the new file, which is going to be probably impossible for you to do. It's just going to be a major headache. Don't do it. Just create another file, include it right here, and it's a lot cleaner, a lot easier to use. The last part here in the head, we've got the link for our fave icon. Again, this is just the one that's shipped with the skeleton framework. We'll drop back over here, fave icon. That's what came with the project. Change that out if you want. Otherwise, you're going to have a black circle with an S in the middle of it for the skeleton branding. And that's it for the head. And then obviously our body and our closing HTML tag. So what I do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark this page up, like I said, the best way that I can right out of the gate. So we're going to look at the Photoshop file, and we're going to kind of break this down as we look at it here. On the top, you've got this, well, roughly half of this sample here is what we're going to consider our header. And then we're going to have a couple divs below it, div 1, and we're going to actually use this entire part here as another div. So really there's three main components: the header, the div on the left, and the div on the right. Now, of course, in HTML5 we can get really specific with this if you want to call them sections or articles or asides or whatever we want. But for the sake of this video, for what we're doing, I'm going to use divs for both of these in this case. So we'll go ahead and switch back over to our text editor, and what I would like to do is just go ahead and start coding this. So I'm gonna drop in some code here from the finished project, and what I'll do is I'll just start I'll just explain it as I go, instead of just typing everything here and boring you. So hopefully this makes sense to you. So what I did is I just dropped in the header tag. Right here you can see this yellow dotted line going up to this opening header down to the closing header. Inside the header, we've got a div here, and this is for the logo. We've got a div here, a class of header. Now don't get these confused. There is a class called header, and there is the actual header tag up above. There are two separate things, just don't get them confused. And within there we've got other divs along the way. I'll explain them, don't worry. It might be a little confusing right now, but we will go through this line by line and I'll show you what everything's doing. Now that's our header. So then what we want to do is add another div, and what this is our left column. So that's going to drop in right after our header. I'm going to paste this again. This is just from the finished project. A div with a class of container, and then we're going to have a div with a class of 6 columns and a class called left column, h3, and some paragraphs in there. So if we look here, we have get all the facts and then some lorem ipsum dummy placeholder text. Let's go back to our Photoshop file and get all the facts and then our lorem ipsum placeholder dummy text right here. So right now what we've done is we've added this header here. We've added a div on the left, so the next step is to add this div on the right. This is going to be a little bit more involved than the other ones because we do have this form in here. So again, I will go through it line by line. I just want to get all the markup in here first, and then we will talk about everything that you're seeing. So we'll drop that in right after this closing div tag and clean that up. So let's go ahead and in here. This is the right column, and this is our left column, and this is obviously our header. So we'll start at the header. Obviously our header tag, and then we do have a div, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to give it a couple classes, a class of container and a class of logo. The container is essentially just restricting it to 960 pixels on the top up there, and the span is where we're going to hold our logo. So in this case I'm just using text. If you want to drop an image in there, if you want to put an image background in there in CSS, however you want to handle the logo, you're free to do that, but I'm just keeping it simple, just dropping in a span call and just adding a little bit of placeholder text. Next up, we've got a div class of header. So again, the header here, this header tag, and the header class right here are two different things. But within this header, what this is actually this section right here. It's got the gray tweed background on there. So we've got the header tag, which is going to hold all of it. Then we have the header class, which is going to hold this middle section right here. So in there again, we've got another container to restrict it. And then we've got a div with the class of row. So this is where the skeleton boilerplate is getting used, because this class of row, and down here you've got class of 1/2 column, and then again 1/2 column. That's the skeleton framework. So let's go and look at that. So if we look at the grid that skeleton comes with, it's a 12 column fluid grid with a max width of 960 pixels, like it's saying up here. So the way you would mark this up is if you look down below here, it's got a div class container, and that's the, like it's saying, it's the main center wrapper for the entire framework. So you're restricting it again to 960 pixels, and that's going to center it on your page. And so we've got our div class container, and inside, or each column should be the immediate child of a row class. So you've got a div class of row and a closing div tag below, and then you've got div class 1 column, div class 11 columns. So let's look up above, and here you go. So 1 and 11. So what this is, it's wrapped in a row, a div with a class of row right here. And each column right here, you've got 1, is its own div. So div class 1 column. So if you wanted 5 columns, that would just simply be 5 columns with an S on the end there, plural. 6 columns, and so on down the line. So you can change that. You just need to make sure that your other column is not exceeding 12 columns, because that's the max width. So obviously if you have 8 columns on the left, you'd have 4 on the right, and so on. And that's how you do it. It's very simple. Just add a div with a class of row, and in that row, so each row right here is going to contain columns 1 and 11, 2 and 10, and on down the line. So again, just remember that you're using, or remember to use the div class row. And again, they've got div class row here on the sample, and it's got 2 and 10, div class row, and on down the line. One other, it's just that's another way of doing the same thing, but you see right here, you've got div class row, div class 1/2 column, and 1/2 column. It's essentially doing exactly what it says. It's splitting it in half. So you could say that another way by saying div class 6 columns and div class 6 columns. It would give you the same result. It's just another way of saying it. Same thing here, 1/3 column, 2/3 column. You could do that the same way by, you know, just naming it by the column itself if you wanted to, but in this case it's just going to give it a little shortcut or shorthand. So 1/3 and 2/3 to equal a full row there. That's really about it. And again, right here, we'll just simply go over this real quick since I'm on the page, but the typography base is Railway, which we had we overwrote that with our Merriweather font, but this is what it's going to ship with, so the H1, H2, H3, and H4 tags, and on down the line. And you've got some button elements that are pre-styled in here that you can use if you would prefer to do that. We've got some forms that are pre-styled in here, and we are going to take advantage of some of that with our form. List styles and some code blocks. So if you wanted to, you know, put some pre-tags or code tags in here, it is preset for you. Tables, preset styles in here. And these are our media queries, so let's just take a quick look at those. We're not going to work with that in this video, but let's take a look. So we've got desktop HD, which is 1200 pixels, desktop, which is 1000 pixels, tablet 750, the phablet, which is 550, the mobile, which is 400. That's going to cover the majority of the devices out there. If you want to get more specific for very specific devices, obviously you can add those in there, but this boilerplate is going to come with those 5 preset. Different utilities, so this is just telling you, you know, if you want to make something full width, you can just simply do it by adding this class of u-full-width, and that's going to make everything 100%. And so a max full width, so this, like it's saying, is it's great for images in columns, so if you want to make that a full width, that's what you would use right there. If you want to float something, there's your float right and left, and clear float right here, U-CF. And that's it. And that's the entire boilerplate. That's going to give you the majority of everything that you're going to need. So again, we got here and I got off on a little bit of a tangent, but the grid was what we were looking at. So let's switch back over to our code here. So we've got 1/2 column, 1/2 column. Headline is a custom class that I added, and we will hit on that here in a minute, but ignore that for now. So again, we've got our container, just like we saw in the skeleton sample. We've got a row, We've got a div with 1/2 column and a div with 1/2 column, and that's it. So simply again, our header, which is containing everything, our container, which is containing our rows, 2 rows, each of them are 1/2 columns, and that's it. Now we've got div class container bottom header. So like you can see right here, free expert advice from the industry authority. So we're going to go ahead and look at where that's at, and that's going to be this area right here. So that's going to be another div within, and we want to go ahead and add that in there, and that's what I did there. So again, like you can see, our header right here contains this one with a class of container and a class of bottom header. Again, container is the skeleton container, div class 6 column right here, because I wanted that to be 6 columns. So again, let's go back to Photoshop and I'll show you. If we turn on the grid system here, you'll count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I went ahead and I stretched it out to 6 columns right here. So that can go out a little bit further, but in our sample, we went ahead and dropped that down below. So that's what I mean by pixel precision. We're not really after it. We're getting in the ballpark, and that's where this is going to leave us. So back over to our code. We've got those 6 columns, and that ends our header. So that's half of the page done. And that was about 30 lines of code right there. So next we have our left column. We're going to have a div class container, like we saw again on the skeleton sample. We wanted to put everything in a container. Div class 6 columns, and left column is my custom class that I'm using. So basically we've got one custom class that's going to style this section right in here, and we just simply have an h3 and 2 paragraph tags within this 6 column div. So this is the left column, and we'll reference that. Let's go back to Photoshop. This right here is the left column, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 columns. So again, what I did is I cut that down a little bit in the code. So you can see it's kind of stretching into the 7th column right here, and I decided I wanted to push that back to 6 columns because I wanted to make this a little bit bigger. So this div right here is going to extend out just a little bit more. So we wanted to push this back a little bit, so I made that 6 columns. Again, not pixel perfect, but we're in the ballpark. So we'll switch back to our code, and we've got our right column now. So we've got our ending div tag right there in our left column, and then our right hand column. So our right hand column is our most involved because we do have the form that's in there, and that's why it's we've got a little bit more code. So starting out on a high level, the div class container, again, like the skeleton framework needs, it needs a container. And then we've got a div with a class of right column, and again, that's my custom class that I'm giving it. So right column, and then we've got a row within the right column. That row is going to contain the div class 5 column signup. So this is where the form is going to be along with that text that's up above. So let's look at the Photoshop file. So on the right hand column, we've got this text and we've got this form, which is right here. And that's all contained right there. So back over to our code. So we've got div class 5 column sign up, and in there we've got a header. We've got a div with a class of sign up body, an h6, a paragraph, and a form. And obviously the form is for the form that you saw on the mockup. Now this ending div right here that ends our row, we're going to start a new row, and this is going to be the testimonial. So again, remember, think of this as rows. So we'll go ahead and open this up, and I'm sorry, we'll go back to Photoshop. So we've got one row here. So this section is a row, and this section is a row, and this is our testimonials row, which falls below our form row, which is all contained within a master div floated to the right hand side right here. So back to the code. Div class row. Now this is going to get a 5-column width, and you can see we're using that u-pull-right. That's that short, the shortcut. We'll go back and look at that, which was in the where was it? Our utilities. So we've got u-pull-right. So float either direction. We're going to float it to the right. Looking back at our code. Let's see, we've got some ending divs, and that's it. That's the entire markup of that entire page. So you can see we're not slicing anything, we're not exporting, we're not doing anything crazy. We're simply using Photoshop as a mock-up tool, a visual aid. That's all it is. We're not trying to do anything crazy with it. We're not exporting anything other than those 3 asset files that we had to begin with. And that's where a lot of people go wrong and they get confused. They really think that Photoshop has this magic bullet or this special sauce that's going to be able to, they're going to use a slice tool, or they're going to export everything and take all these images and place them and stitch them together. And that's just simply not how it works. You have to go in and you have to hand code any mock-up that you're going to get. So as a designer, you may deliver your mock-up to your web developer, and this is what they're going to go through. They're going to have to break it apart, and they're going to have to look at what you did, and they're going to have to convert that into code, which, as long as you're on the same page with people you're working with, not a big deal. They can knock this out pretty quick. And on the flip side, if you're a developer, you want to understand that the designer is coming at it in this approach. They're laying this out for you, and this is what's in their head. So you need to just kind of understand this process that they're going through, and they're going to deliver it to you in a certain way. So again, I think I've said it about half a dozen times now, and I'll say it again. I'm not an advocate for pixel precision mockups. There's always changes. There's always going to be reasons to change things. You're never going to get something perfect right out of the gate. You're going to want to deliver to your client or your boss a mock-up that is pretty close, but not perfect. Because if you've dealt with anybody in this business for even one day, you're going to understand that they all have changes. They're always going to change something, so let them change it. Don't try and get everything perfect. So with that said, let's look at the styles that we need to apply. So we've got a few styles which are going to be in our custom CSS, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that in here now. We're going to link that to a custom.css file, and we'll go ahead and put that in there right now, and then we'll make our file. So custom.css and save. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and this is going to store all custom styles. Oops. And we'll save this obviously as custom.css in the CSS folder. Custom.css. There we go. So what we need to do, we're going to go ahead and just on our body here, we're going to go ahead and set our font family as Merriweather because that's the font that we're using. Fallback is serif. Now our header, remember that was the first thing that we added in there. We want to add a background color to it. That's going to give us that darker gray color. The width of auto, height of auto, and overflow of auto. And so again, that's just simply going to give this a background color, and that's basically about it, and set some width and height parameters. So we'll save that. Let's go and look at what we've got right now. And take a look at that. So I refresh the page, and I know a lot of this is hard to see. There's stuff that's not aligning right. We've got our form, which is on the left hand side, so we need to position that back over to the right. You've got these styles that are over here, but your markup is done. So CSS is going to take care of the rest of this, and it's going to go ahead and style it like we want. Back into our CSS, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a class for our logo. So the logo class, we'll look at the index here, and we've got a class of logo here. So this is simply that span on the top, and it's just going to be text saying obviously your logo here. You can put an image in there. You can do something a little more fancy if you want, but for the sake of time, that's what I've got in there. So all that class is doing is styling the color of the text to white, setting the font size, adding a little bit of padding to it, and we'll save that and we'll check out the effects of that. Refresh the page. And there you go. So that's what we just styled right there. So the next thing we need to do is give our header class a little bit of style. And again, remember we had the header tag and we have a header class. And we want to make sure that we've got the two different things. So header class and then header tag up above. Two different things. Setting the background color, and we're going to add a image. That's that tweed background, and we're going to repeat it. Margin of 0, padding of 20 on top and bottom, and nothing on the right and left. So we'll save this file and reload the page, and there we go. So we've got that top gray area and the bottom gray area. So the reason why it did it was just simply because of that padding. So if we inspect this element right here and we look at the header class, there it is, and we look at our background, see that's going to turn on and off that tweed background image, and our padding, padding right there is going to affect a lot of what's inside there, and our margins we have set to 0. So the container and the logo up above, obviously right here, and we set our logo, our color to white, font size to 22, and our padding to 10 on the top and bottom. So the next thing we need to do is take our headline and give it a little bit of style. We'll drop that in there. So the headline class is going to get a text aligned to the right and the color of white. So doing just that, white text aligned right, and that header is this class right here. And so it's going to take the text that's in here, push it to the right, color it white. So let's look and see if that works. So we should see this right here turn white and go to the right. And it did. So now we want to take that a step further in the H1, which is what we're dealing with right here. We want to go a little deeper into that, and we're going to set the font size of the H1 to 36. So we're not doing this. The reason I'm breaking this out is because we do have other text that we're going to be adding in there, so we want to make sure that we are styling each element. So we've got this H1, and then we do have these other elements that are within the form. So I'm styling this in two different styles because I want to target that specifically. So the headline H1, font size of 36. So if we go back here and refresh, now it's a little bit smaller, and that's what we're looking for. So now we've got our bottom header, which is this here, and obviously you can't read that, so we need to change that. We're going to go into our code again, go to our CSS, our custom CSS file, drop in another class with bottom header, color it white, font size of 16 pixels, padding of 10 pixels top and bottom, and the right and left will have no padding at all. So we'll go back and forgot to save it. Let's do that first. See what effect that had. And there we go, white. Now the next thing we need to do, the bottom header paragraph. So we've got a little bit too much padding here on this paragraph, and what I want to do is, if you look here, we'll see that what's happening is over here, the skeleton.css file, the margin dash bottom, it's actually got a default margin on it. So if we get rid of that, it's going to help out a little bit. So we want to go ahead and get rid of any margin that's getting added on there. So we'll just reset that to 0 and drop that in there. So you see the bottom header and the paragraph within it is going to have a 0 pixel margin. So save that. Left column. Now, so we're going down the line and we're going to start affecting our left column now. The margin is 60 top bottom, 0 on the left and right. Save that and see what that did. Close this down and refresh. And we've got a lot more white space up here that we were looking for. So you can see it's already starting to really take shape. The header looks pretty good. Obviously our form isn't aligning correctly yet. We need to take that and move that up, and we'll tackle that here in just a second. But I mean, we've been at this for only about 30 minutes now, and we've already got a really nice, you know, we've made a lot of nice progress on this. So if you were to do this on your own and weren't recording a video, you can knock this out really pretty quickly. And we'll go back to our code. And the next one is going to be our left column. So our H3 that is within our left column, we're going to want to give that a font weight of 600. Save that, and we'll look at the effects of that. So our left column, our H3, which is going to be that. We want to make the headline a little bit bigger. Refresh it. And there it goes. So we've got a nice bold font there on our H3. And we want to go ahead, the line height of those paragraphs below, it's a bit tight, so we want to go ahead and loosen that up a bit. So we're going to go ahead and drop in another style, left column, make sure you can see that. Left column paragraph, the line height is 1.9. We'll save it and show you the effect there. And I spaced it out a little bit better, so that's nice. So that's it for our left column. Right now we're going to move over to our right column, and I'm going to drop in another style here. So this is the right column class, and I'll show you where we're at now here in our code. So we've got a right column, div class container, div class right column. So we're going to affect everything in this section right here. So we've got a position of absolute, bottom 5 pixel, right 0 pixel, height auto, width 100%. So since we want this to overlap, like we've got here, we need to position this a little differently. We can't just float it without affecting a lot of the other stuff on the page. So in this case, I went ahead and I just set the position to absolute on here. And we're going to do a little bit more stuff in here to get everything to line up correctly. But for now, that's what we've got. We're going to go ahead and save it and take a look at it. So it's right here, position right above the paragraph and the H3 up above. So we've got a form called Signup, and we're going to affect that next. So let's go here. Drop in that code. So the sign up is, let's find where that's at. Sign up right here. So we've got the row, we've got 5 columns, and we've got sign up. So that's what we're going to affect, and that's going to be floating to the right. The background color is going to be set to the blue, and it's going to give it a border and an outline. So let's take a look at that, and I'll explain it a little bit more for you. So there we go. We've got a nice blue background. We've got a white border and an outline around the border. Getting closer, still not quite right, but let's look at our code. So again, what I just did is I took that sign up form, we floated everything to the right. We set the background color to that baby blue color. The border is 10 pixels white, outlined with 1 pixel and a solid kind of a gray color. So the next step is the H6, that header tag that was in the signup form. We want to go ahead and center that and do a little bit more to it. So text center, font size 16, and font weight is 600. So it'll make it a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder, and center it up on the top there. Let's take a look at that. And there we go. So it's affecting the H6 that's in there. And the paragraph, what we want to do with the paragraph is we want to center everything, and we want to make it just a little bigger. I think that's what we want to do. So let's take a look at it. Drop in a new style, sign up paragraph, text align center, font size 13 pixels, and refresh. And there we go. Actually, I'm sorry, we want to make it a little bit smaller. It was a little bit too big. So we made that a little bit smaller. We centered it. And so now the sign up body is another class that I had added in here. We'll drop in the style and I'll show you where that's at. So sign up body, padding 15 pixels. Sign up body is right here. This gives the body of that form. So we got the header and then the body below it. We're going to add some padding because we want to have a little bit of space between that header here. So this is our header, and this is our, you can think of it as sign up body, which is a div here called sign up body. We need that space in there, so we're going to give it a little bit of space here now. So we dropped in the CSS for padding of 15 pixels all around, and that should loosen up that space right there. So we'll refresh, and there we go. Got a little bit of space in there. So we've got our header, which still doesn't look right. We need to go ahead and fix that, change the font to white, make it a little bit bigger, give it some padding, all that good stuff. And to do that, we're going to use that code right there. So sign up, header, color of white, font size 16, padding 20 pixels, top and bottom, and 10 pixels on left and right. We're going to go ahead and center everything as well. So that should have quite a big effect on that section right there. And there it is. So nice padding that's in here. Spacing looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. We need to go ahead and extend our fields out a little bit further, style that button. But we're getting there. We're getting really close. So our sign up form, we're going to go ahead and reset the margin because we've got too much margin here on the form itself. And again, that's because of the skeleton boilerplate. It's giving it, the form itself has some margin in there. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Let's see if we can find that here really quick. So sign up body, and then we should have our form. So you can see that margin dash bottom right here. And that's, again, that was styled on our paragraphs, our unordered list, ordered list, and form. It's going to give it some default margin. We want to get rid of that because we don't want that space in there. We want that to just kind of go away. So by getting rid of that, you can see how it affects that form. So we'll go ahead and get rid of it. And simply just set that to 0. So margin dash bottom is now 0. And switching back, refresh. There you go, gone. So we want to, like I said a minute ago, change those input fields. The width of those, we want those to reach all the way across, because again, if we look at our mockups here, you're going to see how it reaches all the way across, and our button is red and it goes all the way across as well. So let's do that. We want to go ahead and target the type of text and the type of submit. So that's going to give us both of those input fields of text and the input field of submit. The width is going to be set to 100. So the button and the input fields will be 100%. And as long as I saved it, it should work, and I didn't save it. So let's go back and save it and refresh. There we go. Perfect, looking good. So we've got both fields, 100%, that's looking good, great. What we need to do now is style that button. We want to give that more of a, we want the red look and a little bit bigger. So let's take a look here, drop that, and put that in. So input type submit, background color is just red, color of the text is white, the height of the submit button is 60 pixels, the font size is 16, and the margin on the top is going to be 15. So we'll save it. Refresh, and there we go. Nice red button. So that's exactly what we're looking for. Let's go back to our mockup and see how close we are. So we're pretty close. I mean, we've got, full width input fields. We've got a nice red button that's the same width as those input fields. Our text is pretty close. Our header up above is pretty close. So, it's pretty close. It's almost there. So what we need to do is now take a look at our testimonials and go ahead and see what we've got there. So the testimonials div, we're going to have a font size of 16. The margin on the top is 30 pixels. The border bottom is 1 pixel solid, and that's going to give it like a nice gray color. And this is where those speech bubbles came in, because each div is now going to have a background with no repeat on the right hand side, and it's going to have that speech bubble. It's going to give it padding on the top of 20, the right of 70, the bottom of 20, and nothing on the left hand side. So that's going to force the speech bubble to the right hand side. It's going to then restrict any of the text to stop before it actually hits that speech bubble. So we'll save and we'll take a look at it. Refresh. And there we go. So what it did is it's moving everything upward, because this is position absolutely. So we moved everything up, and you've got your padding on the left, which is restricting the movement so it doesn't go over the speech bubble. And again, that's a background image that's applied on that one, on those 3 divs there actually. So we'll look here, go back to our index, and these are the testimonials. So div class row, div class 5 columns testimonial, and we're floating it to the right. We have 1, 2, 3 divs. Each of those divs is going to be given a background image. It's not repeated, it's on the right hand side, and then the padding is going to restrict that text from moving over the top of it. So we'll go back and we'll inspect the element just to see how it's all working out for us. So there's our 5 column right there, our first div, and you can see the green area around that is representing all of our padding, and the margin on the top up there is that orange color. So each of our divs is going to be affected the same way. And that's it. So if you want to, take this further, obviously you can add a footer in here, you can do a whole bunch more, but the basics of converting a mockup, be it a Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, GIMP, or whatever program that you're using, to create that mockup, it doesn't matter. Just realize that you're not slicing anything, and the only exporting you're going to be doing is your assets that you're using within there, and you should have those as separate files to begin with anyway, so you don't really need to slice or export anything from your mockup. The one popular trend that's happening right now is designing in your browser, and I highly discourage doing that. I always recommend mocking it up somehow. I mean, you don't need to use Photoshop. If you want a higher fidelity mock-up, yeah, you're going to use a graphics program. You can do it on the back of a napkin. It doesn't really matter. Just understand that the page structure is going to translate to your HTML and your CSS in some way. So just as long as you understand HTML and CSS and you understand how that corresponds, then you'll be able to lay that out and kind of transfer that design over fairly quickly. There's no magic bullet as of today. There's no way of going in and simply exporting a Photoshop file and have all the code for you. There are programs that try to do it, but your code is probably going to look like crap. It's usually the CSS that it generates is just going to cause you more pain in the long run than what it's really worth. In this case, you have full control over what you're doing. You can use the Skeleton framework. You can use Bootstrap, Twitter Bootstrap. You can use anything you want, just as long as you're using some kind of a workflow, some kind of methodology, something in there that's gonna to guide you, to help you out, and help you with your process. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop these files on my website. If you'd like to download them and look at them, you can. So you don't have to, code everything by hand. You can just download the files. You can play with them. I'll put everything out there that I can. I don't believe that the license allows me to redistribute some of these images, like the book file. I know I can't redistribute, but you do know where you can get those. If you want them, go and re-download those. So the files that you're going to get are going to have everything but the assets that you saw here today in the video. Check out my website. Check out my 52-day challenge that I'm doing right now. I'm kind of challenging myself to producing something every single week, whether it's a video like this, a tool, or some kind of just basically anything. I've done a few different things now. Check out my website, pauldessert.com, pauldessert.com. You can read more about it there. Check that out. You can also check out my Think Tank email newsletter. And what I'm doing is, so far I've got about 500 different designers and developers on the list who are interested in receiving weekly design and development ideas for your portfolio or for different startup ideas. Check that out if you want to sign up for it. That's also on my website, pauldessert.com. You'll see a link right on the homepage to it, so sign up for that. Otherwise, subscribe, and you'll see some more videos coming out of me here pretty soon. So if you found this helpful, upvote, leave comments, subscribe, and thanks for watching.